Hey, I always blame Google when my Hangout goes weird. Hi, everybody. This is our second attempt to make this work because for some reason the last attempt ended up in an endless feedback loop, which was kind of frightening and would not have permitted us to continue speaking. Anyway, we're talking about music, and I had just mentioned that that I always think of Tolkien's lengthy songs, but I think that there are a lot of uses of music that are not like that, and so I thought we could talk about that. And I know also that Reggie wanted us to talk about the interaction of music in our world and the science fiction and fantasy genres at some point. But I want to see if we can start with the music within fiction topic and see what we have to say about it. So, Paul, do you have something that you'd like to start with?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that the normal role of music um, in sci-fi fantasy, and unless it's literature, music is sort of meant to act as a signifier. Like in music, in theater or movies, you hear a certain type of music, and it gets across the world, even if you don't have visuals.
Oh, I see. So for example, conveying the mood in a visual presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, or even just if you want to do Tolkien, obviously, epic orchestral, but for a long time before the movies came out,
Right.
you would play, medieval folk tinges, and the moment you would hear this medieval folk music, people would think Tolkien.
Oh, okay.
It has been used in other respects. If you go all the way back to Fred Hoyle and the Black Cloud, the use of music was a major plot point in communicating with this black cloud that was descending on the solar system.
Okay.
What they did was they played Bach and I believe Beethoven. And then what happened was the thing decided that was intelligent life present here. So it decided to step aside a little bit and not kill us.
Oh, that sounds like a good thing for it to do. Huh.
And so obviously, and you have science fiction genres that can occur in various time periods, and you can use music, easily if you want to say we're in steampunk, you could use music to signify steampunk, or you could use music to signify, a Flash Gordon kind of, atom punky future.
Mm-hmm. Sort of um, as a tool to establish what kind of environment we're in, I suppose.
Yeah.
Uh,
What kind of music is steampunky? Out of curiosity.
It doesn't really officially exist, so you can sort of make it what you want. My preferred, I did a steampunk thing, so I add some accordion and tuba and piano, and then bass and drums, and it sounds steampunk.
well, I mean, there is also, the idea of sometimes having like an envoi, a little opening verse to start a story that sort of sets mood and tone. And I suppose that, I mean, you could consider that poetry, but in a lot of cases, the poetry is kind of intended to be interpreted as musical. The trick with, I think there are a couple of different things going on because first you have, if you're talking about within a story, right, you can talk about people playing music, right? Music can be part of the plot, but you can't actually play the music that you're describing unless you're working with visual presentations and audio-visual presentations, obviously. So music can also be, it can be sort of incidental. I don't know what, I always think of Tolkien's musical pieces as more incidental, creating a mood, establishing what's going on, possibly serving to convey some time passing. a little bit the way that Miyazaki tends to, give you a shot of nothing going on but a snail going up a, a stem in order to indicate time has passed. um, so I think that might be one use for, um, I guess you'd call it poetry with musical elements, or you can say, oh, and then they sang a song, and then you write the poem in, and and hey, it was a song, right? So mood, time passing.
I have to admit, I skipped over all the Tolkien poetry slash songs in the books because I felt like it had nothing to do with anything. Uh, and it may have. It was just like, skip, skip, skip. I think the danger of that is somewhat losing your audience who doesn't have any patience or care um, for songs or poetry.
Yeah.
I thought that Tolkien used it deliberately to bring about the bardic atmosphere.
Mm.
Just going back to a period in time where that was the major form of entertainment.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was. Um, I know. I
Well,
think
it
people,
was funny.
you shouldn't have skipped the songs.
Well, no, the songs weren't. I mean, the songs weren't important at all, but they. I mean, they really true. They were there for the atmosphere, the bardic
Mhm.
atmosphere. That's totally true. So if you want, it helped to kind of give you more immersion into the world.
Yeah.
True world building, not essential to the plot, but but assisting in the immersion.
Yeah, and I think when you see it in the films, I think that, well, I don't know. In this most recent Hobbit film, I really felt like the music was very helpful in the in its immersive qualities. Um, in the cartoon version from my childhood, I always felt like it was a little bit um, taking a break from the story to sing a song. uh, that may have been. Oh, we lost Paul.
Oh,
Oh dear, he'll be back.
yep.
He's back. Lost you there for a second, Paul.
No
Yeah.
idea.
This
Anyway, keep going. Don't let me interrupt.
We're gonna keep going. No, the I don't know. I always felt like we were kind of stepping out with the 80. I guess it was the 80s Hobbit animated feature. Um, let's take a break and sing a song. But it may also be that that's part of the way that musicals kind of used to work, where you kind of have your bit of plot and then you take a break and sing a song. um, it's that thing that everybody always used to parody when they're talking about, oh, it just makes me want to sing. I can't remember what that was from, some kids show or something. When such and such a thing happens, it just makes me want to sing. What did you
There's
say, Paul?
the Monty Python and the Holy
Oh,
Grail.
yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And
So,
to this, I can still sing Frodo and the Nine Fingers.
One of the things I've noticed lately is that some people are singing at readings. Nisi Shawl always sings a song when she reads a story.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, my current analog story opens with kind of a rhyme or a chant. I always thought of it as sort of a chant. So it's for mood. And actually, I'll be a little bit more specific because it's relevant to the topic. I mean, the poem is there not just for mood, but to send social cues as well about who the people are that we will be meeting in the story. So, for example, it's like, let me see if I can remember it. She's a night walker. She's a child stalker. You won't see her coming. No use running. Hands will snatch you. She'll catch you. She's the night walker. She's the mind locker.
A nursery rhyme.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a nursery rhyme, but it's also supposed to have a sort of organic feel to it, like it's been written on the street.
Well, it does sound like Ring Around the Rosie.
By a bunch of kids, yeah. Because the characters in the story are a bunch of slum kids, and they're being preyed upon by this mysterious person called the Mind Locker. And so it sets up a bit of the information that's going to be coming up, but it's also very important to I think, in establishing the social framework, right? That we're dealing with kids, that we're dealing with an informal situation. It's a sort of almost like a boogeyman feel. Like, you know, I suppose that Ring Around the Rosie was like that at one point, right? Literally frightening as opposed to what it is now, which is completely, almost, you know, content-free in its original sense. But
that's just because we forgot what smallpox looks like.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I think
yeah.
one nice thing about this bardic approach, which you can still do in theater, definitely, is you can't really do it in books. I mean, you can come out and you know, like a sort of narrator can kind of come out, draw the audience in, you know, welcome my lovely little blah blah blah, and literally set the stage, describe the characters. I mean, inside of 60 seconds, tell you all the major, you know, tropes that you need to know. We've got, you know, this is your setting. We have this character over here and this woman over here, and we're going to tell a tale, you know, of mystery and intrigue and blah blah blah, and boom, inside of a minute, you've kind of told them every major thing you need to know, and then you can just kind of get right to the action, and you don't have to worry about spending. You don't have to worry about all this buildup.
Yeah.
Not that the build-up's bad, but it's just it's interesting that you can also, you know, in a kind of theatrical way, just sidestep it entirely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how long will it be before ebooks could include a musical track if you want?
Wouldn't that be interesting? Yeah.
I bet you could probably already do that on Kindle Fire or iPad.
I've seen books that do it, actually.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly being done on podcasts all over the place.
Yeah. Well, that's true, indeed. Indeed.
Of course, I saw a recent study that not all humans respond to music all that well. It's something like 14% that don't.
Huh.
And it's not because they're tone deaf, they just don't respond to it.
That's interesting. That's something I've never seen in a story. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, you know, I have to say, like, I think some of the importance that authors imbue songs with is determined by how big a place music has in their lives. And me personally, it's sort of take it or leave it. I'm not musically inclined. I don't sing. I don't dance. I don't whatever. So music does not figure into my fiction whatsoever.
Right, right.
Well, that might
But
be.
like you're saying, Niecy Shawl opens readings or ends readings or whatever with a song, and I know that there are whole bands of authors who have bands. And I would think that those are the ones who probably place more music into their fiction than those of us who are just kind of meh. You know, like I write in silence. I don't like noise.
Yeah. Well, I don't play music. Well, I can't say I don't play music when I write. I play music sometimes when I write. but it's not, it's not something that where if I'm really in the zone and I'm writing really well, I don't hear the music that I'm playing. so so yeah, it's not integral to my process, but I do know people who write to music and will create, the mood in their room. um oh, I need to listen to, I don't know, Iron Maiden to get into this scene. Right? uh, um and I think it's important to say headspace. What we talk about is with a writing headspace. um that's definitely something that we can do. Hey, Dale, is that you?
I'm pretty sure it's me.
Been trying to get Dale in here for about 5 minutes. Cross our fingers that it works. Anyway, yeah. So I think that so that's an important thing. What about filking?
Filking?
Yeah.
It's not as dirty as it sounds.
That is, I don't. Is this?
Filking being, isn't it called filking? It's writing songs about science fiction and fantasy.
Writing songs of wait. Oh wait, is that folk? The genre? It's like folk science fiction fantasy.
Yeah. Folk science fiction fantasy
Ah, yes.
songwriting, I guess. Hi, Dale. Long time no see. I'm glad I finally got you in here.
Yeah, it's tricky.
I can't hear you, but you may have to unmute yourself.
I'll work on it.
I don't know how to turn you up.
I think music could be really useful in plot points, too. Suppose you had an ambassador you had to send out to a race that was highly musical. Would you want to send someone who responds to music strongly so they can communicate better, or someone who isn't affected by it so that they're not whipped into agreements we don't necessarily want to do?
Or one of each.
Yeah, right. Better
Maybe
yet, one of each.
Then they could fight all the way through the story. It would be fun.
Write it.
Yeah, go for it. I want to see that from you, Pat.
Sure, in my copious free time when I have nothing better to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I actually don't see, this is something that I don't remember ever seeing in fiction. But your copious free time comment reminded me of Tom Lehrer. And, because he's the first one I've ever heard say that. And I think about how his songwriting was so, satirical, and how he had this marvelous commentary on the events of his time, and I don't remember seeing a character who was a satirical songwriter about politics.
There's a lot of those, aren't there?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess maybe not in that sense. Maybe as almost like in a Shakespearean fool kind of sense. But I think you make a good point here in the chat about how music is often associated with magic.
Capital Step. I don't know if anybody remembers Capital Step. They did political satire.
Manly Wade Wellman used to do that a lot, too.
Yeah. And that's interesting. The other thing I want to mention is the way that you can put music into the way that you use words. And when I say music, I mean obviously it's hard to do the singing, but there are a couple of things that you can do with language that make it musical, and that one of them is rhythm, and the other is vowel quality. And so vowel quality, I guess, would be the closest thing you could get to actual melody in a written text without an audio track. But my daughter and I just got through reading The 13 Clocks by James Thurber. And James Thurber is just a wonderful writer, and I don't know if you guys have read this book, but if you haven't, you should. It's very short, and it's marvelous. And one of the things he does is that he gets super, super poetic, and he'll play around with all these, yes, alliteration, exactly. Assonance is the one about vowel quality, and alliteration obviously has a percussive effect. So, or actually, I suppose, depending on whether you're using L's and R's, it could be more of a liquid note effect. Yeah, anyway, these are the kinds of things that can get a musical feeling into the prose itself. And I think it's something to be used judiciously, because if you suddenly, on a certain page go off into this wild alliterative style, that it's going to sound a little strange. But it's very interesting to see, for example, how often Thurber rhymes the ends of the things that people say, even when he's not writing it in a poetic line-by-line format. He has a line that goes, "Farther along and stronger bonged the gongs of a throng of frogs." Like, oh, really? And in fact, he's got this one paragraph, that's a line from this one paragraph in the middle of the book that I just love this paragraph. I mean, the thing is, he was a really established writer at this point, and he could just sit down and have a ball with whatever it was that he wanted to do, and nobody would say, you got a little bit of a weird voice in this particular paragraph. Do you think you could tone it down a little bit? Yeah.
I have sometimes run into that with editors. They'll want me to change something, and I don't want to because it alters the rhythm of the words.
Yeah. And I think rhythm is really, really important. Certainly, it's a mnemonic device that was used for thousands of years.
Although, of course, the guy who signs the check has the last word.
Indeed. Funny that.
You don't need prose at all. You just do away with the prose entirely and tell an entire story using nothing but music. And if you want to make sure to be really clear, throw some lyrics in. Occasionally, your characters can deliver lyrics, and you can, you can get across an entire world without ever having to use any prose whatsoever.
It was like Peter and the Wolf, almost.
Great early example.
Like that.
Yeah. That's the only one I can think of.
Pink Floyd, The Wall.
Oh, yeah. That had lyrics and whatnot. Didn't it?
Depends how far you want to go. I mean, if you include I think it depends how concrete a story you want to tell. You can use music to tell a story, but that story cannot truly be very concrete. And if you want it to be concrete, you absolutely positively then must have lyrics.
Yeah.
But opera, or even musical opera, would use just nothing but the characters telling each other things. And obviously the music to kind of, convey the emotion of what's going on.
You could use the lyrics as a secret code. If you're a pair of humans and you have to communicate in front of aliens who speak English, all you have to do is hum the tune. If the other person knows the lyrics, they'll know what you're talking about.
Well, that's a great idea.
Actually.
Another story.
Feel free to steal it. I don't have time to use that right now.
Is my microphone working now?
So I'm trying to think of what songs one might use to communicate. Oklahoma is probably not going to be super useful.
They're coming to take it away.
There was a humming language that was used in. Frank Herbert had a couple who used a humming language in Dune, the first book, and he and his wife would as part of their dialogue.
There's a whistle language somewhere in Europe that's disappearing.
Oh yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's in.
Somewhere in the mountains.
It's in the Pyrenees. It's in the Pyrenees.
Okay. I wanted to say, like, oh god, Basque. I don't know things.
The Inspector Morse TV show would give clues in Morse code.
Yes, Spain, I think it was, and I actually heard a recording of these whistles, and it was very cool. I mean,
Wait, I think Dale just said this Inspector Morse TV show would give clues. Did you say in Morse code?
Yes.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
TV show, you said?
Yes. British TV show.
It's still running on the BBC America channel, although it's Inspector Lewis now since Morse himself died in the fictional universe.
Oh, I see.
In fact, I think the actor did as well.
The actor died a year or two after the show went off the air.
You guys are going to have to interpret for me because I cannot hear Dale at all.
I can barely hear him.
Yeah.
Dale, can you type on the chat bar a little bit for us? Because I think obviously Paul's hearing you better than some other folks.
Yeah.
No, I can't barely hear him at all. But I'm the musician here, so.
So you're using your ears in an intelligent way.
I can hear him fairly well.
Oh.
Well, maybe it's my setup here somehow.
I'm not getting him either, really.
No, that's not volume, that's bandwidth. Okay, well, whatever. Oh, so I have a friend who likes to put lyrics from songs into her stories. But I've also heard stories about how that's actually difficult to do without getting permission from the songwriters.
Actually, not the songwriter. It's you get permit. Hi.
Hi.
You have to get permission from whoever owns the publication rights to that, and it's usually a corporation that charges a lot of money. So Stephen King does it a lot, but he can afford it.
Other people can get by with using a phrase or a title, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Am I too loud now? Is that what the...
No, that's actually great. I can hear you finally.
Yeah,
It's great.
hear you too.
Awesome. It's nice. I feel like you're part of the conversation now, which is great because I know that people talk over each other, and I was not hearing you, and I felt bad. So, let's see. Well, so I'm actually okay. So here's something that I'm going to be doing with not just music, but with art. It's very common for music to be used as an art form to express rebellion, and there's something kind of transgressive about art. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm actually putting music into my novels to show that things are not as they seem, I guess you could say. The novel, here's an example. The novel For Love for Power has this symphony in it that my my protagonist loves music and he wants to go and hear this symphony because it's like nothing anybody's ever heard before. No, my gosh. And when I was writing it, I was imagining the response that people had to, say, the first concert where they played The Rite of Spring by Stravinsky, where people were just shocked and appalled and walked out and you know, and so it's this big deal, but the problem is that it's not that big a deal, so I have to kind of play it below the radar a little bit, and I have my main character saying, "Wow, that was just amazing," and nobody else here seems to get it, and all that kind of stuff, but it actually has a much larger significance for certain types of barriers that are being broken down in the story, and there's a sort of mystery surrounding it that he then follows up later in the book. And so as I'm starting to write a new novel set in this same world where this breakdown of barriers between people is actually starting to progress, I'm trying to show that even when, let's be specific. There are a bunch of laws, okay? There are caste laws about who's allowed to do what in the Varan society. And so who's allowed to do what is pretty straightforward. And even if you were to want to change that, you really couldn't make it that public, right? Because these are laws. If you're breaking the law, there are punishments involved, right? However, if you're relaxing the laws a little bit, then the place where that's going to suddenly pop out and become most demonstrably relevant is in the art forms that change because of a cultural mixing between the different groups who are ordinarily not supposed to mix.
This
So,
reminds me of a friend who's Bulgarian ethnomusicologist. She's working
wow.
on research right now on chalga music, which actually is gypsy music.
Mm,
Years and years before the Iron Curtain fell, you couldn't play that in public in Bulgaria. In fact, you weren't
wow.
allowed to use any sort of gypsy word or Turkish word in lyrics that you sang. But now that the curtain's down, it's all over the place, and it's become the political tide. This is the way you rebel against the way things are, as you play chalga music.
Wow.
Various states of undress, apparently. It would be easy to imagine a society where different kinds of music were tied to caste.
Mm-hmm.
Without it having to do with Pan-Slavism.
Andrea Stewart has a novel where music is outlawed, and of course one of the main characters is a musician.
There used to be lots of swing music. Used to be very subversive, and if you added in certain places in the world, when fascism was taking over, if you added a little swing phrase, it was, you would just sort of sneak it into something, and it was a very rebellious act.
Mm.
We had it in this country. How many tropes did we borrow from black music before we admitted what we were doing?
Yeah.
Well, American music is the melding of European and African music. I mean, that's
My favorite is syncretism.
Syncretism. Great word.
But just as music can be rebellious, music can also bring people back to the fold. You can have you get a bunch of guys arguing, and I don't know, you like one melody from of a popular song when they were teenagers, or a melody from the homeland played at the right moment, and suddenly fill their hearts with with nostalgia. And suddenly, either they make them be all friends again, or inspire not only just patriotism, but jingoism.
Yeah. Well, did you hear that? Did you see that link that went around yesterday, which was the Star Spangled Banner sung in minor?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun twist, and it changed the feel of the song immensely, right?
Same as Jolene played in a slower pace.
Mm.
That was
There's a
gorgeous.
guy who's taken original Beatles recordings and others and changed the actual recordings from major to minor and vice versa. And it's very painstaking how I don't know how he did that. He has to pick out, from a complex recording a particular note and shift that without shifting the others. And
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't remember where to find those, but they're fascinating.
But theatrical and operatic composers, I mean, do that. Everyone knows, you have the nice melody in the first act, and when you bring it up again in the fourth act, you throw it in minor, as the tragedies befalling, and it's an easy way to just rip out the audience's heart.
In the Flash Gordon movie, which was not very good, Brian May does a zillion guitar version of the Wedding March, and in the middle of that he switches to minor, and it's very weird. It just it's menacing.
Actually,
Flash Gordon is a great movie.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
it's a terrible movie, but it's an awesome soundtrack.
It is the awesomest movie ever made. Oh my god.
Dude, oh my god.
Oh. Oh.
I can quote all of it. I don't want it in my head, but it's there.
That feathered, conditioned hair can survive anything.
Well, I think that we're saying something kind of important, which is that music is very emotional. In much the same words that words are, I think music gets associated with particular types of contexts of usage, and so when we hear it, it brings up those contexts of usage, and that's how it creates a mood, or how it creates, what it does. I mean, for example, I think about when babies listen to suspense music in a film, right? How does the baby grasp it? Ooh, something's going to happen. Well, they don't, right? But they hear that music and it's associated with something scary happening, and all of a sudden the first association is made. And so by the time that you end up, 5 or 10, you've already decided that a certain type of music is going to make you go, uh-oh, something's going to happen, right?
The music can be inherently scary. You don't need the context of the film. If something has a tremolo effect, it builds anxiety, and with sudden bursts of sound, ping, boom. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not necessarily just fear either. There was a meme running around yesterday too of somebody using a piano and playing Jerry Lee Lewis to elephants who were boogieing down to it.
Yeah.
I think maybe it does. Yeah, I mean, because it's vibration, maybe it mimics our own physical responses in some way, or evokes a certain kind of neurological response.
It actually does. There's like studies on music and how it affects the brain.
I mean, I've seen those videos of birds boogieing down.
Yeah.
But if you just using rhythm, because the human heart beats at more or less 120 beats a minute. So if you have something that has a regular rhythm going on that's faster than that, or at that pace sustained, it will sort of automatically put you into an excited state.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then there's also, for example, when you go to like taiko drum concerts, or obviously, rock concerts where it's really, really loud, where you feel like the drums are just beating you, right?
Often the the resonant frequency of the human chest is somewhat enhanced in certain kinds of music. It's somewhere around 120 cycles, and if you boost that a little bit, you feel it as much as hear it.
Mm.
Taiko always hits me right in the heart.
Yeah.
Which is why epic movies love to have those, those the low drum, the
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom. They work really well.
Well,
One place I've seen music used lately is in Anne Lecky's new book, Ancillary Justice,
okay.
where she's using a lot of little phrases and they're keyed to memories. So she's got these two storylines going, the past and the present. She's tying them together by the strands of music that come up in one and then reappear in the other 1,000 years later.
That's pretty cool.
It is. I just bought that book 2 days ago.
It's fun. I'm only about a fourth of the way through it, and I can already see that it's going to be a fun ride all the way out.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if you guys do this, but what I'll sometimes do is I'll find the resonant frequency of a room.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to do when you're in like a bathroom because it's very resonant. It's also relatively small. Like showers will have their own resonant frequencies, and if you're in a particular room and you burst out with a laugh or something, every so often it'll catch a little piece of that resonant frequency and something will kind of go hum in the air around you. And my own temptation in those situations is just to go, ooh, what note was that? Try to hum it again so I can get the whole room going, oh, right? Crazy.
I like to harmonize with the vacuum cleaner.
Yes. Okay.
Awesome.
I used to live in a dorm where the laundry room would do that.
Sorry, the laundry room was what?
The laundry room would resonate if you sang the right kind of song.
Mm.
I never sing in public because I'm really too self-conscious, but I would do it there, and then people would come by afterwards. Was that you in there?
That's pretty fun.
Spaceships ought to offer lots of opportunities for small spaces that you could experiment with.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
You can find the resonant frequency, you can destroy the ship.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to.
Well, there's that great video of the bridge collapse, right? I just love that one where the wind just hits the right frequency and the bridge just goes, and there it goes. Dang, I think we've learned a few things from that. Tacoma Narrows Bridge, yeah, that was it.
Wouldn't every species, would every intelligent species have its own, like if you're creating a culture, whether it be alien or fantastic or, wouldn't every single different culture have its own form of music, its own form of creative music?
Not if they don't hear.
I'm sorry, what?
If they don't hear, if they don't have ears.
Even deaf people can listen to music.
Yeah, but if you were visually take squid or octopi that communicate visually, it might be music, but it would be entirely visual.
Right.
Well, you could argue that yes, there might be visual musical forms, but I don't see that there would not. I don't see that the lack of ears would definitely make music and vibration irrelevant, because you'd have to be completely non-tactile as well.
There's a woman, she's deaf. This deaf woman who plays she plays marimba she plays the most extraordinary marimba you've ever heard. She's totally deaf. She went to some really prestigious music school where she worked closely with her teachers and literally can feel the vibration of every single note of the thing as she plays astonishingly well, and I wish I could remember her name because you should totally YouTube her. It's
I
amazing.
think she's been on, hasn't she been on like Sesame Street or something?
Probably.
So if there's vibration, you can create melodies and you can create harmonies. And how we would perceive those, I don't know. I mean, color is not a thing that's out there. It's something we do in our heads with the frequencies that come in. What if a species' brain was wired to perceive wavelengths differently?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, there are. I mean, things like B, C into ultraviolet and things.
Yeah, that's sort of an extension of it's different ranges. I'm trying to imagine an entirely different perceptual mechanism. I don't know what that would be.
Yeah.
You guys are the writers. You know what happens when the brain crosses and you end up the brain. There's a word for it where you end up like
Synesthesia.
Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And then you end up like tasting music.
Yes.
But it would be interesting if it tasted good. But what if everything just tasted like burnt toast or something?
Yeah.
Well, so part of the point of having these discussions is that we range all over the place, and lots of ideas come up, and you know, I think we've had about 5 different story ideas, most of them coming from Pat, that have been explicitly mentioned, but you know, a lot more I think that have slipped by, and that people who watch the video later might actually be able to relate to and get ideas from. So that's part of what this is all about. Anyway, we're getting to be noon here, so sorry about all the technical difficulties at the front. And Dale, I'm really glad we made it to have you in here. And Paul, thank you so much for coming. And we're going to wrap it up. And let's see, next week is going to be domesticated animals.
Oh, cool.
And then the week after that is... No, actually, sorry. My mistake. We have a guest. My second week is always for guests. So next week is Alma Alexander talking about her Where Chronicles series. And then the week after that is the domesticated animals. And the week after that, I'm taking a break because I'm going to be between 2 conventions, and I'm probably going to be out of my mind. And then the last week of the month, we're going to do cultural ideology, which should be kind of fun. So you're welcome to attend any of those if they interest you. And hopefully I'll see you sometime. I'm going to stop the broadcast now, so thanks to everybody who's watching.